What is up, people of the internet? It is me, Real American, back in with a new video, and I hope everyone is having a great day. I'm certainly having a great day myself, and before we get into it, don't forget to like, subscribe, share with your friends, and of course, join the channel today. Again, these are all great ways to support the daily content, but enough of the promotional stuff, let's get into it because we have to talk about the ever-changing political map in America, because 2024, I really believe, changed everything. Like, I'm not saying that this for sure means that the Republican Party will win 500 electoral votes every single year, but I do believe that 2024 showed us there is a brand new region in American politics that for years no one was really talking about because, quite frankly, it was a Democrat stronghold and no one ever came close to winning anything here. That, of course, is the Northeast, and I really believe that if the Republican Party is smart about this, they could actually expand the map into the Northeast. And I know that sounds crazy because back in 2020, Biden won these states easily. You just look at these states here in 2020. Look at New York. It was Biden plus 23, New Jersey plus 16, Connecticut plus 20. These are very Democrat states. So to suggest that, hey, wait a minute, not only are these states closer, but you can make the argument that maybe, just maybe, the Republican Party could expand into these states? It sounds ludicrous. And I would have said, you know, these states might get closer, but never in a million years did I think that any of these states would have any chance of flipping. Well, then 2024 happened, and we saw some stunning results across the board. Just look at Massachusetts. This is a super Democrat state, right? Harris won the state by only 24 points. Yeah, she won Massachusetts by only 24 points. In 2020, Biden won it by over 33. Just look at the map. Look at all the townships that became Republican. Hell, look at Boston. Harris failed to crack 80% of the vote in Boston. In 2020, Joe got 83% of the vote here. This is Massachusetts. This is a state that no one thought was going to swing at all. Everyone thought, oh, there might be a small shift here and there, but it's not going to change that much. Well, guess what? Kamala Harris did so bad here that she didn't even crack 80% in Boston, while Trump cracked 20% in the city of Boston. Well, just keep going. Look at Rhode Island. It was only Harris plus 14. 2020, Joe won it by 21. Connecticut, Joe plus 20. Connecticut in 2020, Harris plus 15. Are you noticing a trend here? All the New England states had a big shift towards Trump, even Vermont. Yeah, Vermont was only Harris plus 31. 2020, it was Biden plus 36. Yeah, she underperformed in Vermont. It was so bad that for the first time in I believe 20 years, a Republican won 2 counties in the state. Yeah, these are states that no one thought was going to move, if at all, because you would think, oh, Kamala Harris, she is loved by college-educated whites and the Northeastern liberal. So there's no way that she's going to do any worse than Joe in Vermont, Massachusetts, Connecticut, etc. But no, by some miracle, Harris did so bad that she underperformed Biden in every single state in the Northeast. Yes, that includes a place like New Hampshire, where most of us thought it was just going to trend more to the left. This is a state that, of all the Northeastern states, is clearly having a trend towards the Democrat Party. Yet by some miracle, despite the Trump campaign putting in very little effort, I mean, they sent J.D. Vance up there for one rally, but that was it. Outside of that, they did nothing here. Despite that, though, Trump only lost the state by just under 3 points. Biden won it by over 7, and everyone thought it was just going to keep trending to the left. Hell, even I thought that while it was possible for the state to maybe swing towards Trump by just a little bit, I found it so unlikely for it to be within 3. Hell, I thought it was maybe Harris plus 6. That was best case scenario for Trump. That's what I thought. But no, he got it within 3 points, a state that he put little to no effort in, but somehow was within 3. But of all these states, I would argue none of them, And I mean none of them, could compare to what happened in New York and New Jersey. I know for a fact that not a single person predicted this. I thought, it might swing to the right. Like, this is a what? Biden plus 17 state? Biden plus 16. Okay. I thought, maybe Biden overperformed in New Jersey because of, being Scranton Joe. Maybe that's a possibility. And, he does slightly better than Harris here. And I thought, Harris is a weaker candidate. It might be within 12 to 13 points, but it wasn't just within 12 to 13. No. It wasn't within just 10. It was nearly within 5 points. Listen, Trump did a single rally here, and that's it. He did nothing else. He did no other rallies in New Jersey. And I know people are going to say, oh, well, New York City. But either way, his campaign did not put that much effort into the state. Yet Trump only lost the state by 5.5%. That's it. And just look at some of these counties. Look at Passaic County. Trump won it by 4 points. In 2020, this was a Biden plus 16 county. This is where Patterson is. This is a very Democrat area, yet the entirety of New Jersey, especially the northern half of the state, had a dramatic shift to the right. And now, there's a possibility that maybe the Republican Party looks at this and say to themselves, you know what? There might be a new battleground state in New Jersey. And I know that sounds crazy, but these results are so good for Republicans. And you look at other trends like voter registration and you realize, wait a minute, a state like New Jersey, this may not be a fluke at all. This might be the beginning of something crazy happening, not just in New Jersey, but in the entirety of the Northeast. Same thing with New York. Everyone knows the story by now. Trump got it within 13 points and did phenomenal in places like Queens. Like, look at this. Harris won Queens by only 24 points. She barely cracked 60% of the vote here. In 2020, Biden got 72% of the vote in Queens. Yeah, Trump absolutely ran it up in New York City. And look at Long Island. He flipped Nassau. He made Suffolk a safe Republican county. It was Trump plus 11. In 2020, it was a tied race. It was Trump plus like 200 votes. And that's it. Now, you could argue that the only reason that New York wasn't that much closer than it should have been, despite doing way better in Queens, just the entirety of New York City and Long Island, is because of upstate New York. These counties did not shift as Republican as, say, Queens did or, Brooklyn. They just didn't. They shifted a little bit Republican, but not enough. And this is why for years the Republican Party, they kind of just ignored the Northeast as a whole. Not just New York or New Jersey, but Connecticut, Massachusetts, Vermont, New Hampshire, even Maine. Because these states, these rural areas, they're not R plus 80 like they are in Alabama or Ohio. These areas, some of them might lean to the right, but even in states like Vermont, the rural areas, and there's some that are red, obviously, but the majority of the rural parts of the state, they're still very Democrat. And that's the first problem. Secondly, no matter what you did in upstate New York, it doesn't matter if you got absolutely killed in places like Queens. If you lost this area by 50 points, you had no mathematical pathway to victory. None. There's just too many people in New York City for you to have some kind of victory in the state of New York. Even places like, Massachusetts with Boston. And I know Massachusetts is a different state, but you get the point that the entirety of the Northeast for years, there was no pathway here because the rural areas were just too Democrat or pinkish, while the urban cores, they were just D plus 90. But that's starting to change. It was a consistent trend across the entirety of the Northeast, not just New York. I showed you Boston earlier. Boston had a big shift to the right. Rhode Island with Providence. It was Harris plus 50.6. In 2020, it was Biden plus 50 or 63. So it's every urban part of these areas, they had a consistent trend towards Trump. It wasn't just a single big city that shifted heavy towards Trump. No, every single big city in the Northeast, especially the places like Boston, New York City, Providence, these areas swung heavy towards Trump. And you start doing the math, it's like, wait a minute. This was without putting much effort into many of these states. Like, yeah, the Trump campaign, they did a couple rallies in New York, a couple in New Jersey, but what about Connecticut? What about Massachusetts? They put no effort into any of these states, yet there was a consistent trend towards Trump in these areas. Now, what would happen if the Republican Party actually invested time and money into these states? What if they actually did? Now you start talking about, hey, maybe the results in New Jersey, maybe it wasn't a fluke. Like, Trump did so good in New Jersey, the voter registration trends actually prove that this may not be a fluke. What if you target the state? Well, what if you put money into New Jersey, into Connecticut, Rhode Island, New York? And I'm not saying you're going to win them in 2028, but make them closer. And then in like 10 years or whatever, try to flip them. Because if these trends are real, and these voters are voting against the Democrat Party now, there's a good pathway for Republicans in the Northeast. And if you go to the electoral map, if this was the 2024 results, we'll just say Trump flips New Jersey, which it's unlikely, but if he wins New Jersey, or I should say whoever the Republican is in 2028, well, they could lose Georgia, Michigan, Wisconsin, even Arizona, and they would still win. Again, this is a very unlikely scenario, but if you win a place like New Jersey, if you put money and time into the state, suddenly your pathway to winning becomes so much easier. Because you're also pathways in New York if these trends are real. And maybe down the line, the trends in Connecticut, Rhode Island, maybe Maine, Maine really didn't shift that Republican for whatever reason. But in places like this, maybe the Republican Party should invest time and money into these states because, yeah, a place like Maine doesn't have the most electoral votes, but it starts to add up. Like, you get 2 more out of Maine, you get a couple more out of New Hampshire, maybe Rhode Island flips. And then the Democrat Party, their pathway to winning is they have to flip so many Trump states that it becomes very unlikely for them to win the election. So that's why I believe the Republican Party, if they're smart, they would invest into the Northeast. What's the argument against it? What? If these trends are real, if you put money and time into these areas, theoretically at least, they should continue to trend more and more Republican. And if that happens, you have the pathway to maybe expanding the electoral map. Which, if you do that, the Democrat Party's already in a lot of trouble. Like, oh, they're losing places like Arizona, Nevada, North Carolina, Pennsylvania. But if they lose a place like New Jersey or somehow New York, how do you expect them to win? And for those who are saying, well, maybe it's not worthwhile in the Northeast, maybe this was a fluke, I disagree. I really believe the trends we saw in the Northeast in 2024, they weren't a fluke. It was just the beginning of a realignment in America that most people cannot accept. And there's a bunch of reasons why I say that's the case. For starters, the Northeast has a ton of Catholic voters. In my opinion, of all talking points from 2024, this one is not getting talked about enough. Trump won the Catholic vote by 11, according to the Fox voter analysis. 11. And you go state by state, let's just go to Connecticut, right? Trump won them by only 5 points, but look at this. Catholics make up 41% of the vote in Connecticut. Let's just go to another Northeastern state. Let's go to New York. Catholics make up 36% of the population. Well, Trump won them by 14. And these Catholic voters, they're shifting more and more Republican. The Democrat Party, they have given up on these Catholic voters everywhere. Not just white Catholics, but Hispanic Catholics are saying, no, you're out of here. We don't like Catholics anymore. Despite the fact that was the Democrat Party for decades, in recent years, they've been moving further away from the Catholic vote. And if the Republican Party, which, by the way, J.D. Vance, I would say the presumptive nominee in 2028, he's Catholic. He's a Catholic Republican. If he's at the top of the ticket, would it be really crazy to say maybe he could boost up these numbers across the board? which would help Republicans in places like New York, Connecticut, Rhode Island, these very Catholic states, and even places like southern Texas, where there's a lot of Hispanic voters and they're majority Catholic. You start doing the math and you realize if these Catholics keep trending Republican, and I think the Republican Party, they will target them, well, it becomes a much simpler pathway to winning places like New Jersey, like New York. And I'm not saying that J.D. Vance or whoever is going to win the Catholic vote by 50 points, but if he wins Catholics in New York by, let's just say 25 points instead of 14, well, you're talking about New York being within 10. We just got to see what happens. Maybe it's all a fluke, but with the trends we're seeing with the Catholic vote, and if they continue or just accelerate with J.D. Vance, these states could actually be a lot closer than they should be. And that's not the only reason. If you look at New York, well, in 2024, the Hispanic vote was still like D plus 26. African Americans voted for Harris by roughly 70 points. If these trends with minority voters continue, which again, with the Catholic vote, with Hispanics in particular, if they continue to trend Republican, these voters are going to become more and more Republican. Therefore, places like New York, places like even New Jersey, could be a lot closer than anyone thought was even possible. Like, that we all know the Hispanic shift is real. They're consistently trending Republican. And they actually do make up sizable chunks of the vote in places like New Jersey, places like New York. And I'm not saying they make up half the vote or anything, but like, they still make up like 12% in New York, 11% in New Jersey. Let's see here. Yeah, 11% in New York, excuse me. They still make up sizable shares in the vote. Now, again, we just got to see what happens, but the more you look at this, the less crazy it seems to say, hey, maybe the Republican Party does have a future in the Northeast. It seems unlikely, I know, but it seems actually plausible. Anyways, folks, thank you so much for watching. If you guys did enjoy, smash the like button down below, subscribe, share with your friends, hit that little bell, follow the social media accounts in the description down below, and of course, join the channel today. Godspeed to all of you.